Welcome to Ham Nation, episode 554 for September 13th, 2023. And how's it going, everybody? I am Josh K5ATA. Thanks for clicking on the Ham Radio Crash Course, home of Ham Nation. We have a literally jam-packed show. We kept adding more things and more things and more things. So on with this and say hi to our wonderful panel of hosts. Bob's back, everybody. That's two shows in a row. How you doing, Bob?
I am doing great. A lot of people know that I had some defugals this year around Christmas, and I lost all my muscle strength and so on because some doctor gave me a Keytruda, and I have found a wonderful muscle degradation doctor that's gotten it all back, a lot of steroids. But only thing is I can't walk, but I can do everything else. And
now, wait a minute, Bob. Wait, Bob, you said you could stand. We all want to see you stand.
Oh, I can do that. Oh, that's easy. That's easy.
No problem.
Oh, there you go.
Great. And Bob can also play the electronic organ. And he's got music out there.
This is him right now.
So, Bob, what was it like playing the organ for the first time a couple of weeks ago?
Well, it was great because I couldn't do it for several months. They have an organ here. It's quite an instrument that somebody had donated to the living assistant where I am right now. And somebody donated it. It's a $50,000 Lowry.
Oh, wow.
When I first saw it 2 months ago, I couldn't push one key down, even with a couple of fingers.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Bob, we are so proud that you've done so well. So we just wish you the very best and continue to play that organ, okay?
Indeed.
And it's been part of my rehab. It's after 2 hours of all the other things they do. Why we go by the organ and I play usually at least a half an hour a day, and they believe about 2 months ago I couldn't make a fist.
Wow.
They'd say make a fist. I said I am, and they said make one. Well, I can do that now.
All right.
So
well,
it's all because of the steroids.
Congratulations, Bob. And we're just so proud of you, and all of the ham community say continue to be strong and get well. So
and I would imagine that the other residents hearing your organ playing is therapeutic for them as well.
Yeah,
they do. I go down and get a bunch of them gathered around. And one of the fun things is that Dwight Hilton visited me last Friday, and Dwight and I have been friends. He's the organist at the baseball park for the Cardinals.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
And
wow. Well, that's great.
We're going to do a little concert for him one of these days. But
We've got a big show, so we got to jump out of here. And we're going to look forward to hearing more about your great progress because you're the one that started it all, Ham Nation. Thanks so much, Bob.
Well, thanks to hundreds and hundreds of letters and emails and phone calls and visits. Chris is going to be here. He and Joycelyn here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, good.
I'm so thrilled of all of the things that have been coming to mail, and I appreciate it very much. So,
all right, Bob. Well, thanks so much for coming aboard, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, when I get to walk here in maybe a couple of months, I'll be back at home to all the radios and be on the
very
regular.
good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
73, Bob.
Thank you.
So long.
Gordo, you're next up. What's been going on with you, buddy?
Well, all is well. We've been playing radio like mad, getting ready for the extra class book to be updated for next year's new extra class pool. And the folks at the league are doing a spectacular job. Maria and all of the team in getting the new questions formatted. But we've also been doing a little bit of radio repair. So let's take a quick look at something that hams can do themselves and save about $400. So we'll go to take a look at a very popular radio, and that is a Kenwood 2000. And that was a forerunner of a lot of radios that included HF, VHF, UHF, and even 1.2. Now, you see that big tuning knob? Well, many of these radios now are getting a hitch in their getup, and that is when you turn the knob, every 360 degrees it hangs up, and you give it another twist and it goes ahead. Well, if you went to have it serviced, independent service people say, oh, it's the optical shaft encoder, and that's like a $500 deal, and maybe we can get the optical shaft encoder. I go, no, I don't think it's inside the radio. I think it's outside. So first thing you got to do if you have the Kenwood 2000 is remove that rubber ring. Once the rubber ring is removed, you got to get your little millimeter in. It's one of the next to the smallest metric Allen wrench. Get that little Allen wrench in there. And once it makes connection, give it a turn. And that's a used one that I use, but it did the trick. Give it a little loosen up, pull that out, and this is what you see. Well, what in the heck is happening? Well, behind the knob itself, and I've got one in my hand, and I'll show you in just a moment, is a clear piece of plastic that covers the silver portion of the knob. This clear piece of plastic every so often gets a little bubble in it, and that little bubble is what scrapes against the back side of the radio that gives you the hitch and the get up. Well, what the deal is, you very carefully peel off that plastic, and you want to use a little bit of cleaner to make sure that the remaining silver part
used to improve vision
is absolutely clear. And see that little gip right there at the top? That was rubbing against the back part of the radio. Many, many Kenwood 2000s have this deal. Once you remove that plastic, you're ready to roll, reassemble it, and enjoy a knob that's going to spin freely without the hitch and the get up. It is not associated with the optical shaft encoder on the inside of the radio, but rather just the big knob that is on the front part of the radio. Finally, a lot of you have asked about the colored meters you see on my big Kenwood 990. These were a short production of LDG, the antenna manufacturer, antenna tuner manufacturer. LDG, wonderful products. They came out with just a couple of hundred of these. They got snapped up quick, and something happened to the die that they couldn't get any more certain parts. So if ever you have a big Kenwood or an Icom or a Yaesu that has a meter output, and you spot one of these at a swap meet, get it, because there's no more being made, and they are wonderful to give you a good large S-meter reading of all the activity on the band plus your transmit. So that's my story. We've got a full show tonight. So Josh, back to you.
Excellent. We call that the fast shots. That's the Gordo short shots right out of the gate swinging. I love it. Don, we're going to be going to you later in the show, but what have you been up to?
Well, it's been quite busy the last month or so. Of course, we had the Huntsville Ham Fest, and we went to Texas to see my sisters, plural, which is very cool. And this week we're getting ready for mine and Dawn's 39th wedding anniversary, and then coming up at the beginning of October, it's cruising the coast. So it's just that and working and the dogs and keeping track of my son and just living life and enjoying everything. And that's what's going on here. It's just, we're busy living life and loving it. So Excellent. There you go. We got Dr. T and her report coming up with the Amateur Radio Newsline coming up in a little bit. And also we're going to talk about a very cool special event that's going on for another couple of days that you really need to partake of.
A very important event. And in the Amanda seat, we have somebody, good-looking guy, but not Amanda, right? We got Steve Goodgame from the ARRL. Reminder, everybody, Amanda's taking a little bit of time to be with her family for reasons that, we're just keeping it it's private for her and her family. So in the meantime, we're spending some time with our friends that we've made along the way. And Steve Goodgame
We have friends?
Yeah, I know it's crazy, but we got a couple
What does that
of
cost us a month?
yeah, a lot, a lot. That's what keeps this show going is the friends. But Steve Goodgame is joining us from the ARRL Teaching Institute, among other things, and we'll be talking with him later too. But Steve, how you been?
Fantastic. Busy. I made my way down south last month. Also took Jerica to moved her out of her dorm and into her apartment at Ole Miss, and now that she's got an apartment, she's got her radios back now, so she and the boyfriend who shall not be named are going to start doing a little POTA together. I did test him out, and he got on the air with, he didn't have mic fright, so he earned a point or two, but that's about as far as it's going to go for now.
I did see evidence of that POTA. I saw some pictures, I think, from that. So good job that he had. I think between you and Jerica, watching him, monitoring him on his first activation, so pretty good.
Yeah, he wasn't afraid of it, or he was more afraid of me, one or the other, whichever one. I don't know.
That's probably true. Very
So
good.
glad I have a boy.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, Steve. We appreciate it.
And thank you for having me.
So our first guest is Mike Smith. Yeah, sorry, Mark Smith, and we're going to be talking about this. Sorry, yeah, boy, and this is we're just going to cut to him immediately because we'll just bring him right on. Mark Smith, how you doing?
Hi, everybody.
Mark is from the Open Headset Interconnect Standard, and obviously, that can mean a lot of things. You start saying the word standard, oh boy, people's eyes start rolling back in their head. But we'll start it off easy. Does everybody have a radio? And have you ever tried to take a headset or an audio system and use it on every one of your radios? How has that gone for you? Probably not well, but that's what Mark wants to talk about. So first, Mark, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
So explain this whole thing, the Open Headset Interconnect Standard. What's that all about?
Yep. So we have 4 words there, and they all mean something. I'll go over what they all are. But first, let's describe the problem. We've got standards in our hobby, like 13.8 volts for power, right? Mm-hmm. There are a bunch of different physical connectors, but because they're all the same electrical standard, we can convert back and forth from the physical standards easily. 50 ohm coax is another standard, right? We have different coaxial connectors, BNC, SMA, PL259, but because it's the same electrical standard, we can switch back and forth between the physical ones pretty easily. We have no such standard between the radio and the user, right? And this makes it very difficult in a multi-user environment to be able to take your headset that's got your ear goobers in it, and you only want to use your headset with your ear goobers. I don't want you using my headset, and I don't want to be using your headset, right? So I want to be able to take my headset and plug it in to any radio in this multi-user environment. Think like a club station or an EOC or a contesting station, that kind of thing, right? Where you don't necessarily know what radio you're going to be working ahead of time, but you bring your own headset into this environment, and you want to be able to connect anywhere.
So I got a quick one for you. Did you do an interview with AA0Z Kyle by chance?
I did, yes.
And he mentioned, when you're running a contest, you got a shift. Somebody finishes their multi-hour long pile-up that they've been working, and they take these cans off, and they're hot and they're wet, and they set them on the table, and you got a hot couple of minutes to let those things air out before the next user plops them on their head, right? Not exactly the thing we want to have, right? Particularly with these ear goobers, right? So that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes. So the idea is that I have defined an electrical and physical standard called the Open Headset Interconnect Standard. Open meaning that it is an open standard. Everyone can use it. There is no licensing or patents or anything like that, right? It is a completely open standard. Open, kind of like open source, right? Mm-hmm. The term that the open source community uses is free like speech.
Great. Love it.
So open headset, meaning it describes the signals between the radio and the user, microphone, headphone, and PTT. Interconnect, meaning it connects all of those things together. And then standard, meaning that if one company designs a piece of hardware to the standard, it should work with another company's hardware that is also designed to that standard. That's the goal.
Right.
So I've designed that standard, and if you're curious about the technical details, we don't have time to go into that today. Head over to ohis.org, Open Headset Interconnect Standard, ohis.org. I'm sure there will be a link in the show notes. and all the technical standard is listed there as well. Now, in an ideal world, radio manufacturers and headset manufacturers would adopt this standard natively, and you'd just be able to take your brand new headset and plug it into your brand new radio and connect it together, and everything's great. I realize we're a long ways away from that, so we're going to have to do adapters in the meantime. Now, how is this different than the adapters that we already have to deal with between the headsets and the radios, right? Well,
that was going to be my question.
Yeah, like with just one adapter, now I need to have an adapter between every single headset that I have, or that my club has, or my contesting group has, and every single radio that we have, and that ends up being a full mesh of adapters, and that's a lot of adapters that you have, and you don't necessarily know whether, when you walk into an environment, whether it's going to have the adapter that you need. Whereas with OHIS, you would buy or build one adapter for your headset that is unique to that headset, and it stays with that headset. And now that headset has a standard port on it. Similarly, you buy or build a adapter for your radio that is unique to that radio, and it stays with that radio. And now your radio has the standard interface on it. And you do that with all your radios and with all your headsets. And that is the last adapter for that headset or that radio that you ever have to buy. No matter what else you plug into it, as long as it is OHIS standards compliant, that's it. That's the last adapter you buy. And once everything is standards compliant, then you can plug any headset into any radio. Okay.
So the object here, and we're saying the magic word, standards. I have an engineering background, and so when I hear standards, I start to get a little scary, right? Because how do you actually get an industry to adopt something like a standard?
That's the trick question there. And it's going to be a long road to hoe, and I know that. And
good choice of words. That's the right idiom. Long road to hoe.
Long road to hoe. So my goal is to try and get adoption in the community first. And so once the users start saying, "Oh, okay, that is a problem that I kind of always knew about, but there was never any solution to it. Now there is a solution to it. Let me adopt that standard and start using it in all of my in multi-user environments." It doesn't make as much sense at home in your home shack where you can just buy the direct adapters between things. You have relatively few headsets, right, and relatively few radios. So it really makes sense in the multi-user environment. But you start getting the community to adopt it with the adapters. And then as that takes off and more people start adopting it, then the radio manufacturers will eventually get on board. Like we're starting to see radio manufacturers now selling radios with Anderson power poles on them. Finally.
Right.
20 years later, after the Anderson power pole kind of became the de facto standard, it started coming into the community, and it has kind of became a de facto standard. Radio manufacturers are now starting to adopt it natively.
It's also kind of interesting that, when it comes to a power plug, right, a lot of us are okay with radio manufacturers just giving us two bare leads and being like, mix your own up. If you want to do power poles, go nuts. But when it comes to audio, when you start adding that third wire, potentially fourth wire, then all of a sudden we're like, "Oh, buddy, I don't know if I want to go down this road," right? So there's a certain level of like, we need this because we already have, I use the term the Tower of Babel of all these different interconnects, right? So how do we align them? And I think you said basically we have to dongleize everything before we can kind of unify everything, assuming that the community wants to bring that on, right?
Yeah. And there is a precedent for this, right? Like radios started putting data ports on their back of their radios, and there was a standard for that data port, like the 6-pin mini DIN or the 8-pin mini DIN. I don't remember exactly what the
9-pin serial, right? Back in the day.
But that's for serial. I'm talking about for the audio.
Sure. Okay.
The data ports, which are the direct discriminator and modulator, unfiltered, unaudio processed, direct access to the FM modulator in mobile rigs, so that you could hook up a 9600 baud modem to it without having to crack open the radio and solder wires to correct pins on correct chips and whatnot, right? So like the industry is already, we have a precedence for, here's a thing that the community wants. Let's define a standard connector and expose these signals while still preserving our own proprietary headsets and microphones and whatever else, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is in addition to the stuff they're already doing. And it came because the customers wanted it, right? The customers were asking for it. And
Right.
so my goal is to get there with OHIS and get adoption to the point where the customers start asking for it. And I'm hopeful that the radio manufacturers will start doing it and the headset manufacturers will start doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like to standardize things where possible. I'm always yelling for, USB-C, right? Should be adopted now. We're seeing that with the iPhone finally. But with ham radio, this would be like another one of those examples. So going to the next step here, as you kind of already said, if you can't get adoption at the manufacturer level, how do we get it at the community level first? So I'm guessing the next step is maybe you've got a prototype or you've got a device that, you might be able to work with, something like that.
It maybe, yeah. So I'm going to take off my standards advocacy hat and put on my commercial product hat here.
Okay.
I am very careful to keep those two things separate. Halibut Electronics, my company, electronics.halibut.com, cha-ching, sells adapters, and they're currently for pre-order. However, I literally just came home from the manufacturing company yesterday and saw like all the products on the racks that they're in the middle of being made right now. I should have them in a couple of weeks and ready to ship out. So, but I have what I call the Radio Adapter Pro and the User Adapter Pro. The Radio Adapter Pro, Radio Pro, is an interface that connects to the microphone and the headphone or speaker output of your radio, and presents a pass-through port where you can plug in all of the radio's normal devices that did go into the ports that you just used for this adapter, right? Mm-hmm. Plugging this adapter into the microphone port, now you can't plug your microphone into it anymore. So I put that same microphone port on the front of the adapter so that you can still use all of the radio's stock devices. But then it also presents an OHIS port off to the side. So that picture right there, can you embiggen it?
Yes.
If you click on it, I think it'll make it bigger.
Well, I can.
Seriously? Is that as big as I've got it? Okay, I'll have to update that on the webpage.
Let's see if I can. Because it's I can't really increase the screen size. We can do it that way.
Okay, that works.
But,
so you see the 8-pin round microphone connector. It's actually called a GX16. Fun fact. And then there's the 8-pin 8P8C, also known as an RJ45 modular connector next to it.
Right.
And then there's the little 3.5 millimeter. So those are the three different microphone input connections. There's an RCA for PTT, and then there's a 3.5 millimeter on the other side for headphone or speaker output. And so those connectors are on both the front and the back. The ones on the back connect into the radio.
Sure.
And then the ones on the front are the ones that you connect your radio's microphone into.
Yep.
So this kind of goes between the radio's microphone and the radio, and then it also presents an OHIS port. And when you push the PTT on OHIS, that microphone audio, the OHIS microphone audio gets sent to the radio. When you press the PTT on the stock mic, that audio is what goes to the radio. So you can use either one of them at any given time without having to move cables around.
Yeah, I like the it's a universal translator, right? Is really what we're talking about here for microphones. Which again, Kyle's literally in the chat A0Z, and he's saying we need this for multi contest stations because of this exact thing, right? That you get in this situation where you got somebody's sweaty cans on your head.
That's right. Can I do one more sales pitch?
Well, it depends. We'll see where you're going with this.
So once you have a standard between the radio and the user, it becomes a lot easier to start making devices that go between the radio and the user. Without that standard, I now need to make this device have all of that complexity of what different type of microphones are they, what levels are they, do they need bias voltage, is it headphone out or speaker out? Right? All of that complexity needs to be built into this device. But now that I have those adapters that present a standard interface, this device becomes a heck of a lot easier to build. Spoiler, this is what I actually want to be building and selling as a company, not the adapters, which is part of the reason why I'm happy to help somebody else make the adapters and price me out of the market, right? That's not the business I want to be in. This is the business I want to be in. This is my contesting console. So picture you've got a port here for a user to plug in their headset, a port here for another user to plug in their headset, and a port here for the radio.
Okay.
All right, so two users, one radio.
Okay.
Okay. Each user has their own 4-channel mixer here. Those 4 channels are the radio audio, their own microphone audio, the other user's microphone audio, and then an ambient mic, which I'll get into in a second. So basically, the 2 users have an intercom between them. They can hear each other.
Okay.
And they can
That's
hear the
cool.
radio.
Yeah.
And each user can set their own volume mix of all of that stuff. And then when one user hits their PTT, that user's microphone audio gets sent up to the radio. So it's great for if you've got one user operating the radio and another user logging the contacts that are happening, right?
Sure.
Like you got 2 people stationed on a radio for a field day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also got another feature where it's got a speaker power amplifier in there and a little 3.5 millimeter port so that people walking by can listen to the radio if they want, so they can hear both sides of the conversation.
Oh, cool. Sure.
Right. And then if the operators need to hear what's going on around them, there's just a little MEMS microphone, a microphone built into this device that they can turn up
In case they've
to be
got
able
really good isolation on their
yeah,
phones or
just so they
whatnot,
can
yeah.
hear what's going on around them if they want to.
Curiosity, because I saw that. So what if hypothetically you're at a field day and there's like 5 stations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're each running one of those devices. Could the outbound, the quote unquote second set of headsets, could those all go to like some kind of an interconnect or network thing to allow all the stations to be able to intercom each other?
So it is not currently designed for that. That would be many more mixer bus channels.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the problem is you have to channelize everything, or you'd have to digitize it or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's a much more complex problem. This one is intentionally kept to just 3 mono buses and 1 stereo bus. So the receive audio from the radio stereo, and then the 2 different microphone, the headset microphones, and then the ambient microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Interconnecting this in with a whole bunch of other ones would probably be another device.
Got it. Let's see. So Paul asks, sounds great. How much? And then there's a second question of when will this be on the website? This other item you're showing.
The contesting console?
Yes.
So the contesting console, I'm actually I'm putting it together right now. The list price for contesting console, I think I've announced it on my groups.io, so I'm comfortable saying here that the list price for this is $199.
$199. Okay.
But keep in mind that this isn't assuming you have OHIS compliant devices. So you also need to either build yourself some OHIS devices, which I would help you with, or if you'd rather just throw money at the problem, you can go onto my website and buy those adapters.
Excellent. And I think we've got another question from Ham World Online. Hey, how's it going, everybody over there? Would it be possible to set multiple hardware to share one headset or mic with more than one radio? I think that's kind of what I was saying, but that would actually be more complicated because then you're also bringing the mic into the game, right?
So that is a second device. So this is the contesting console, which is 2 users, 1 radio. Okay. I also have a design that I haven't gotten as far as doing hardware prototypes for yet that I'm calling the station console. So this is the contesting console. The other one is the station console, which is 4 radios, 1 user. And so the receive audio from all the radios get mixed in together and sent up to your headphones. Your microphone audio gets buffered and split out and sent to all the radios. And then the PTT would either be a single PTT with a 4-position switch or 4 separate PTTs. I haven't really figured out how I want to do the PTT yet, but it'll be one or the other or maybe both of those. I don't know. But you basically now have the ability to select which radio you want to key up. It's also worth noting that radios don't have to be literal radios. You could make a OHIS compliant radio device that is a USB sound card, right? So your computer can become a quote unquote radio in the station console. That's actually a product I intend to build.
Because that could also have then effects to like the SDR communities, right? For people that are working remote.
Yep. Or in my case, I just like sitting at my computer and working. I want to be able to listen to music, but I also want to be able to monitor the 2-meter call frequency or the adventure frequency, right? So I want to have all of that audio coming in into my headphones, mixed and sent up to my headphones without having to switch back and forth between all that stuff.
I love it. All right. Well, look forward to more from Mark in the future. We'll be chatting with him. As you could probably guess, we could go quite a long time talking with Mark about all the fun mad scientist stuff he's working on. But Mark, thanks a lot. And I dropped the link in the show notes. I'll get them into the description as well. And I already dropped them in the chat for you there too. I'll give you one more. Let me drop this in the chat before I forget. For everybody watching it, it's ohis.org to give you the Open Headset Interconnect Standard. So go check that out. Thanks a lot, Mark, for hopping on with us. All right.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
And let's take a moment, get a word from Icom.
Keep your competitive contesting edge with Icom. Icom's high-power base stations cut through pileups, letting you work the bands and record those contacts. Contest from the comfort of your home or remotely with the RSBA1 app. Heard it, worked it, logged it. The IC7851 gives you a new window into the RF world and is HF excellence unparalleled. With faster processors, higher input gain, higher display resolution, and a cleaner signal, it's truly the pinnacle of HF perfection. Dual receivers, digital IF filters, memory keyer, digital voice recorder, high-resolution Spectrum waterfall display, enhanced PC connectivity, and SD memory card slot. The IC7610 is the SDR every ham wants. This high-performance SDR can pick out faint signals in the presence of stronger adjacent signals. The Icom IC7610 is a direct sampling, software-defined radio that has changed the world's definition of an SDR. RF Direct Sampling System, 110 dB RMDR, independent dual receivers, and dual digicell. Icom's IC7300 is a high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with a compact design that will far exceed your expectations. This innovative HF transceiver digitizes RF before various receiver stages, reducing the generated inherent noise in different IF stages. This is a radio that changed the way entry-level HF is designed. RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and SD memory card slot. The real HF fun starts here. For more information about Icom's amateur offerings, visit icomamerica.com/lineup/amateur.
And a big thank you to Icom America for sponsoring this episode of Ham Nation. Hey guys, the link is in the live stream comments right now and in the show notes, but there's a new website for Ham Nation here on Icom. Check this out when you open it. Ooh, animations. The radios come flying on when you do that. So what's this all about? Well, if you haven't watched this show before, every time we go live, if you click that little Enter Now button, again, link is in the description for this video, you can enter into the swag pack giveaway. Icom will pick 3 winners for the swag packs. It includes things like t-shirts, shirts, a random assortment of cool things. And those 3 winners get added to a growing list throughout the year of people that they draw or pick from at the end of the month to win a free radio. So you got to win a swag pack to win a radio potentially at the end of the month. So our swag pack winners this episode are Ernest G, W1RU, Paul K, KF0JQW, and Rodney B, W1ZLA. And that means at the end of this month, I think if we scroll down here, let's see, what's going to be the grand prize for September? It will be an ICT-10. And then in October, 2730, it's one of my favorite mobile radios for simple analog radio. So there you go. Thank Icom for doing these giveaways, not just the swag packs, but giving away a radio every month. And I heard in our chat, the live stream, the individual who won, I think last month or the month before, they're in the chat right now. They're playing with their radio. So thanks for joining us, guys. I appreciate it. Okay. You know what? That means I get to throw to myself. It's time to go say hi to our friend Steve. So throwing back to me, I'm doing a lot of work with Amanda not here and all that. I'm working both ends of this episode. But Steve, how are you doing, man? It's good to see you.
Man, I'm doing good. Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. So obviously, the last time we were here, you were talking about in growing your Teachers Institute and adding more sessions. So how's that been going? Were you able to do that?
We had, well, by the end of October, we'll have had 5 sessions this year.
Wow.
I really had enough applicants. I probably could have run 7.
Wow.
I just don't have the funding for 7. It's completely donor funded. It doesn't come out of dues, so it's purely people that give to the education fund and to the Diamond Club.
That was a bit of a surprise the last time we had you on. You kind of clarified that a little bit for us. So is there membership dues that that people pay, the ARRL, and things like
everyday
magazine,
operations,
some other things like that. But your Learning Institute, the Teachers Institute, and all that's a special, separate fund, right? Can you go into some detail on that, or a little bit more?
Yes. So I kind of pull money from 2 funds. One of them is the Education Technology Program Fund. That money goes straight into running Teachers Institute, buying equipment for Teachers Institute. It's completely expenses paid, so it pays for like teachers' travel to come up to TI, lodging, all of that stuff. That money is earmarked. It's restricted money, so it can't be used anywhere else. And then I've been going around to teacher conferences to, interest more teachers in using wireless technology in their classroom as part of their STEM program. And so that money, I could probably justify using that education technology money for that kind of stuff, but that's really not what people gave that money for. They gave it for Teachers Institute. So I pull that money out of Diamond Club donations. So, when somebody gives over and above their dues to Diamond Club, that's the kind of stuff that does. It sends me to like the National Science Teachers Association conference, where I can present to teachers and kind of let them know some of the advantages and how we can help lift up their STEM programs.
What's the reception been like? Now you've done, you said 5? Was it 5 or 6?
Yeah, five this year, and I've got 7 in the budget for next year.
And how many teachers, and then kind of what was the reception like, and have you heard back any feedback yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's, we completely changed the program this year. The equipment, in fact, I sent you some pictures if you want to throw some of those up.
I would love to, yeah.
I can kind of go through. So this is kind of what the teachers see when they walk in the door. This is the equipment that they get for Teachers Institute 1. And I'm just going to make a quick little shout out to most of the companies who you see stuff on the tables there for, either donated equipment for us or gave us a significant discount on equipment, so that I saved enough money just basically asking them for a deal that I was able to run an entire week of TI with those savings.
Look at that. That's a well-appointed little setup there.
and I'll go ahead and that little digi-rig you see right under the logo there, that's thanks to Josh.
Wait, me?
You. If you remember, you had the digi-rig guy on your show.
Yes.
A long time ago, and he had said, hey, if you ever have a teacher or anybody he promised up 10 of those. And so when I reached out to him and said, hey, Josh connected us, and he said and he sent the cable sets and everything included.
That's cool.
So our TI2 teachers all got this.
Was that digi-rigging into like a handheld or something along those lines?
Yeah, that was in TI2. So they do a lot of APRS stuff and whatnot in TI2. So
love it.
So that's what that is. So, but pretty much everything you're looking at there, except for that microcontroller Elegoo kit, we got a deal on. They're the only people that didn't. SDR Play donated the SDR Play units for us.
And, just thinking, in my own head as a teacher, if I had to do such a thing, all that stuff you see on the table could be used to demonstrate radios pretty well. I mean, as far as that whole thing goes, right?
Yeah. And my whole idea was I wanted it to be stuff that when a teacher got back to school, they could use the next day with kids. They didn't have to have a lot of setup time. It was, if the TI1, they actually got a Fox as well, a Bionics Fox.
Oh, cool.
So they could get, we programmed them while they were up here. They were able to go back to school. They could hide the Fox somewhere on the football field if they wanted to. And the very next day, their kids could have a Fox hunt. This is in the parking lot of the hotel.
Okay.
It's these folks, you asked about what the reception is. These people are getting up at 2:00 in the morning to go out and try to work satellites.
Apparently, from the looks of everyone holding antennas, the reception was good.
Yeah, they were absolutely just hooked. I mean, they would come in to TI. We started at, well, this particular group would get there about 7:30. We, normally start at 8. But they would come in dragging, drinking their coffee because they were up 4 times in the night to try to, work the ISS or work a satellite. And that's what I want. If we can't inspire the teachers, then how can we expect the teachers to inspire the kids?
That's right. I love it.
So,
great. Yes, I love it.
This is just a shot of the closet. The closet is now almost empty because I have one more TI session. I intentionally gave every teacher a Baofeng. Love them or hate them, that's what 90% of your 14, 15-year-old kids are going to buy. And so the teacher probably needs to have one so they know how to use it. The kids are familiar with how to program it. Like I said, whether you love them or not, a kid's getting on the air.
I thought that was going to be. I thought that was going to be one of those attempts. We desperately need your money. We're down to giving away Baofangs to the teachers. So we have.
No, but we do desperately need your money.
Yes. Yes.
And I saw Kyle in the chat earlier. I'll go ahead and shout out to Kyle. He had me on. I guess it's been a month or so ago, and he raised up between, in fact, everybody who went to Huntsville, the YouTubers, threw money in the hat, and it ended up donating almost $1,000. I think like $850 or something to my education.
Wow.
So kudos to Kyle and whatnot there. But
I think I hit the button. There we go. One more. There we go.
Yep.
There it is.
Another thing that I'm trying to do is, it's fine and dandy to bring teachers up and inspire them, but if I don't inspire the people in charge of setting curriculum in various states, then it's a lot harder to make progress. Mm-hmm. And we were fortunate. We convinced one of our state senators, that's Connecticut Senator Lisa Seminara. She is the chair of the state education committee. She came out and spent some time with us and saw how we do things, and she's going to hopefully be bringing back some other members of our education committee for our October TI, so that we can try to help push into Connecticut schools. I figure I'm starting my backyard. I can drive to those.
Love it.
So this is a new thing. Just like Icom gives away swag on your show, everybody who goes through TI1 and TI2, they've been through both of them, and if you notice, our staff badges are the red ones that have the little black lines, and they kind of don't make those for anybody except for ARRL appointments and stuff like that. Well, Rick the Sign Man came up with these for me. They're the same format, but they're silver, and they're purely for Teachers Institute graduates who went through both of them, so they can wear them to Hamfests. Part of it's selfish marketing on my part. I want them to walk around. I want them to walk around Hamfest and have somebody look and say, "What is that?"
Great idea. Great idea.
Hook somebody. So this is myself and one of the instructors that we use at one of the teacher conferences. Like I said, we go to teacher conferences. My wife and I travel and spend way too many hours in air miles and too many cups of Delta coffee getting to and from, but presenting to teachers all over the country about what amateur radio can do for them. And we were actually inside the hall talking, and we were explaining, how you can use amateur radio to communicate through satellites. And a group of teachers was like, "Oh, that's really cool." Well, while they were talking and looking, we looked up, said, "We have a pass in," I forget how long it was, in a little while.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we packed up the booth and headed outside, and some of these people, in fact, there's a young man on the left who's like wearing a coat with, you can just see the back of him.
Yeah.
I only took the back of him intentionally because he is a kid, but he actually was there presenting a STEM project he had for his school, and he actually got on the air and made a contact through the satellite.
That's great.
Oh, wow. Oh, excellent. That's great.
So that's kind of, I've got the teachers there who were inspired. A couple of them have already been to TI this year, and I've got one more coming in October. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I firmly believe in is anybody who's doing similar work needs to do it together. And we've partnered up with a bunch of space people. One of my mantras that I sing all the time is, you can't really explore anywhere cool without radio. Yeah. And these people are all people who are, ISS National Lab, Higher Orbits is in there, and Limitless Space Institute. And they all, they're space exploration. And it's funny, I was standing there talking to them, and they're like, the Limitless Space Institute's got this thing where they say, we can't really go anywhere cool unless we can go faster. And I said, well, that's great.
True. That's true.
I said, so when you get there, how are you going to tell us you made it? And they just kind of stopped and looked. I said, because you have to be able to talk faster too.
Right.
And it's, if you don't have communications in your plan, then you can't really do anything cool. And it was kind of enlightening for them at the same time. They're like, whoa, because when you look at high school and middle school STEM programs, radio is pretty much left out of it. There's not a lot of wireless tech in there. They take it for granted. Mm-hmm. They'll fly a drone, but not really about
and never mind. Never mind what's actually giving you the control of that drone, right?
Yeah. And so if you don't expose kids to the concept of radio and RF at a young age, kids, they naturally dream big, but they only dream about what we give them to dream about. If we never expose it to them,
right?
Radio is never a part of their dreams. So.
Oh, well said again.
And I am a firm believer that the smartest man in the room is the man who learns how to find the other smart people in the room. We are building Teachers Institute 3 that hopefully will launch this summer. And it's going to focus on space, obviously, and high altitude ballooning. I know absolutely nothing about high altitude ballooning other than they go up and eventually they come down. But this is an example of how local clubs are a great resource to help us learn. And so I drove this club's about 45 minutes from my house, the Meriden Amateur Radio Club, and they've been putting up balloons over the last several months. And so they're going to help us integrate high altitude ballooning into Teachers Institute. So
I love it.
That's me learning how to do that.
Oh, okay.
That's Rosie, the executive director of ARDC, and you've had Ed on here before. He's the M17 project guy. Mm-hmm. They just stopped by to visit W1AW, and Rosie is in ARDC. They're great partners. I know several people in the room probably have benefited from ARDC grants.
Rosie's great too. Good to talk to.
And I had the privilege of getting her on the air for her first HF contact. So
that's Rosie?
That's Rosie.
Oh, okay. So great.
She was up there. She was still a technician at the time, but I played control operator for her, and so she sat down at W1AW. In fact, it's funny. By the time she got done with meetings about some planning that we were doing together, we were actually in the middle of bulletins. And so typically W1AW is not usable during bulletins, but we might have accidentally, turned off the 15-meter bulletins so she could get on the air for a minute.
Don't admit to that. Don't admit to that.
We won't tell.
Hey, really quick.
There's no law, it's fine.
Yeah. Really quick, are donations tax deductible? We got a first question there.
Absolutely, yes, they are. So
okay, good.
Whichever fund you choose to donate them into, yes, they're completely tax deductible.
Good.
We've got the foundation director, or the development director rather, that we have, Kevin. He does a great job of getting all that stuff out to you.
Excellent. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's Don.
That's Don.
He's next. That's what's going on next.
So this is at Dayton. And the gentleman with the dark glasses that looks incredibly short next to me is Frank Bauer.
Everybody looks short next to you, Steve. You don't need to point that out.
This is true. But he's the head of ARRL, Amateur Radio on the ISS. And so he and I have done a couple partnering things where we've had some, like we had an experiment where we sent a slow scan TV image through the FM repeater recently on the ISS, so that my teachers at TI could receive an image, and it was an image that was basically a little QSL looking card directed just for teachers. And we did a really good job with having coordination between them. Had some press out there. It was all over Connecticut. I've had several people call and say, they saw that, they're interested. How can I get this into my school? Stuff like that. So Frank was instrumental in that. They sent the signal from Goddard, which was cool, and up to the ISS, and then people around, halfway around the world were pulling down our image. So the teachers kind of like, whoa, that was cool.
That is cool.
And this is Carlos. Now this kind of goes with that last picture. That was outside at Dayton Ham Vince, actually waiting for what Carlos did. If you don't know Carlos, I'm going to shout him out a little plug. His YouTube channel is Life at Terminal Velocity. And Carlos saw that we had a bunch of kids hanging around our booth. And he was like, hey, what's going on and whatnot. Anyway, long story short, Carlos ended up he jumps from airplanes and talks on the way down, for those of you who don't know. And so we coordinated just on the fly to have a youth only jump where he jumped and everybody he talked to was going to be kids. Mm-hmm. So, we kind of didn't advertise what frequency we were going to be on. The grown people eventually found us, but, every single kid, I think we had 20 kids or something out there. Some licensed, some not licensed. We had ARRL directors, staff, just random hams acting as control operators. And Carlos made a point of working every single kid on the way down. And then when we're out of kids, we started grabbing unlicensed adults. And, it doesn't get a whole lot more epic than that. And he brought me a bag of his own coffee that he
family grown coffee. Yep. Good stuff.
Nice.
And then this is the other hat that I've started wearing lately. I obviously, like I said, I never have enough money in the fund. So I've been keynoting at donor banquets and different banquets and talking to people and basically trying to help them understand that, most of us as hams were provided this opportunity in school, mm-hmm. either directly in school or as a direct result of somebody at school. And whoever you want to blame for it not being in schools now, I mean, as an organization, yeah, we fell short. As a ham community, we all fell short. We didn't adapt with the times. So, I go around trying to, I guess, remind people that just because we kind of skipped a generation doesn't mean that the kids that are in school today don't deserve that same opportunity. And so, like I said, I'm not above begging for that money, so I'll beg whoever I've got to. Like I said, next year I could probably fill 15 teachers' institutes if I had the money to do it. In fact,
that's good.
This year, TI normally houses 12 people. I have such a hard time saying no to people that we're cramming 18 people into that conference room.
Yeah, what's a better problem to have? The money and no teachers? Or the teachers and no money? I feel it's the latter, because at least you're on the right path, right?
Yeah,
the interest is there.
It's there, and
yeah,
ideally, if I had a slightly bigger space or something, sure, I could fit more teachers in there. As it is, like I said, in fact, I think I said 18. It's 19. We're gonna have 19 teachers at the end of October.
Good.
We're gonna have to move the conference table over and bring in some side tables. There are enough people in there that when it's soldering projects and stuff, the folks from the lab are going to come over and help us do some soldering work, because it's too much for one instructor and me with 19 folks. So I'll take the problem of having too many teachers every time. So
yeah, I think that's the better way.
And this is another thing I do. I wonder why I chose this column.
Thank you.
I also write a couple columns, one for QST every month and another one for On the Air. The QST column, we highlight a different YouTube creator who, kind of creates really good stuff and goes above and beyond to help educate about amateur radio. And Josh, you were the inaugural issue. So,
thank you. I appreciate that. And there's Ham Nation in the upper right-hand corner. So
yep, got Ham Nation in there, and got a little. I think that's the ID 52 you're holding down there on the bottom.
It is. Yeah. Very good. Well, Steve, thanks for taking the time and kind of guest hosting for us, and as well as just kind of being the advocate you are. Somebody in the chat said, boy, what was it? Where was VE? Goodgame's come a long way in the past 3 years. No joke, man. You went from kind of just being a YouTube friend, making some videos and stuff like that, to now you're like you're helping run the education arm, if you will, of the ARRL,
Yeah.
which I think is fantastic.
So, well, it's I tell people all the time, it's kind of a dream job.
Yeah.
I did amateur radio in my classroom, all of my teaching.
It's
and
true.
So now to get to do this and help other teachers do the same thing, I'm tired. I drink way too much coffee, but
Sure.
it's a worthy cause. I've seen it. I've seen the impact it has on kids. I mean, my own kiddo, she's excited that she's got her POTA rigs back down there, and she can, even if it's with the boyfriend, she can go out and do parks on the air. And I've seen how it impacts her and how she's grown. So, and I've made some great friends. Santiago's in here, Ham World Online. Another one of the hats that I'm wearing now is the IARU Region 2 Youth Coordinator.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
Yeah, and so Santiago's helping me get into Central and South America, helping create some content for that. So, that's one of the areas that Yoda Camp has always had a hard time getting to. Just no fault to them. It's purely, visas take so long for some countries to get up here. It's really hard to coordinate that. So instead, Santiago is going to help me go there to do some of this stuff.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Well,
Great
Steve,
job, Steve.
Yeah.
Great job.
I'm glad you're out there kind of, I don't know, pushing for all this, making sure it doesn't die. So the links are in the description of this video and also the live stream. They obviously can use their support, but it's support that's proven. There's a track record, and we got more teachers than we can pay to get educated and bring this to their home classroom. So need your help there. So make sure you go avail yourselves of the link. And Steve, thanks for being on again. I appreciate it.
So thank you for having me. So,
Yeah.
And my anybody has questions or anything, they can shoot me an email. It's just my call sign at ARRL.org.
There you go. K5ATA at ARRL.org. Well, thanks again. Don, I'm throwing to you, buddy. Take it away.
Great
Steve,
job,
you
Steve.
are an inspiration, Steve. I got to tell you, working with the kids, that I get a little bit of that. Every August when I help out with the Young Ham of the Year presentation and everything, and just working with kids is so gratifying. You get to see the future. You really do. It's a crystal ball. You get to see what's going to happen once we're gone. These kids are going to carry on with what we're doing and what we teach them to do. So good on you, man. Good on you. Something else that's going on right now is, of course, the Route 66 on the Air special event. But there's another one that I want to tell you about that you might have gotten brushed under the rug a little bit, and it is Kilo 4 Mike India Alpha. K4 Missing in Action. This is the National POW MIA Recognition Day 2023. I'm very, very fortunate that my adopted dad, my dad, returned from the Pacific Theater in World War II, and that my bonus dad, my birth mother's father, or birth mother's husband, rather, not my biological dad, but my birth mother's husband, returned from Vietnam, where he, I won't say was a Marine, because once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. He is a Vietnam Marine. He's still around, and so did not get to have to endure the POW or MIA aspect of war. But anyway, the whole point of the Recognition Day is to make sure that we remember and show that we stand behind those who served, and that we do everything we can to account for those who have yet to return. We certainly hope that they'll all return, but we know that that's an impossibility. But this is a great way to remember and do your part. They're going to be operating from some pretty cool ships there. The U.S. Drum submarine, couple of submarines, USS Hornet, and the Alabama battleship, as well as a very cool Special Ops Mark V Navy SEAL boat. Those pictures are there on the QRZ page. And anyway, get out, and I believe it goes on until the 17th. So get out and look for Kilo 4 Mike India Alpha, and get yourself a card and let them know that you appreciate what they do. I certainly appreciate what Dr. T does and what the rest of the Amateur Radio Newsline crew does. So let's take a look at those efforts right now. From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2393, this is Ham Nation Headlines for Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. We begin this week with news that many hams around the United States have been waiting forever to hear. Newsline anchor Neil Rapp, WB9 VPG, has the details.
The beloved electronics retailer Radio Shack is returning to the U.S. marketplace under new ownership. The Radio Shack name is coming back from a difficult history that ended in its pervasive presence with more than 5,000 locations around the U.S. The company filed for bankruptcy twice under its previous ownership, and only a handful of its franchised locations were able to maintain a market presence. Now the brand's largest franchisee, the Unicomer Group, based in El Salvador, has acquired the company. Although they aren't sharing much yet about their plans, the vice president of franchises, Rudy Simon, released a statement saying, quote, "This acquisition will allow us to start another phase of growth and innovation in the shopping experience with the latest technology," end quote. Stay tuned.
In the U.S., emergency communicators are looking back on lessons learned from Hurricane Idalia.
Just like winter snowflakes, no two hurricanes are alike, depending on the size, wind speed, rainfall, and travel speed. So activations by emergency personnel, including amateur radio operators, have to be flexible. Last week's Hurricane Idalia is a good case in point. Bobby Graves, KB5HAV, manager of the Hurricane WatchNet, told ARRL Newsline, going into Idalia, knowing this was going to be a fast-moving hurricane, we did our best to line up well ahead of projected landfall, reporting stations, storm shelters, and emergency operations centers. We were expecting the storm to remain at least a Category 1 hurricane into South Carolina. After it was downgraded to a tropical storm, we changed gears and began calling for any post-storm reports. One serious issue involved a very strong wide signal causing interference on the upper end of 20 meters. The FCC later confirmed that it was over-the-horizon radar that originated outside the U.S. and was not considered intentional. This is Randy Sly, W4XJ.
All eyes remain on Major Hurricane Lee as he continues to churn in the Atlantic. If you have expertise in engineering, technology, or other areas relevant to radio, there may be a seat for you on an FCC advisory body. Interested?
If you work in broadcasting or have a background in science, engineering, or technology, you may be interested in becoming a member of the FCC's Technological Advisory Council. The TAC provides guidance to the Commission and looks into issues that could have an impact on emerging technologies. The Council's input is expected to help in the creation of informed policies. Members will be expected to be able to weigh in on such concerns as spectrum sharing techniques, 5G, and artificial intelligence. The term lasts 2 years and there are 4 council meetings a year, which are one-day sessions. For other details or to submit a nomination, send an email to tac@fcc.gov. Nominations are received until the 22nd of September. The Council expects to meet in December. This is Patrick Clark, K8TAC.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news since 1976 at arrnewsline.org. With Neil Rapp, WB9 VPG, Randy Sly, W4XJ, Patrick Clark, K8TAC, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe, I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW. 7-3, we'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now, here's the solar update from Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW.
Our sun remains a bit on the quiet side with a glancing solar storm blow and some fast solar wind. Those stories and more in the news this week. Our sun keeps things on the quiet side this week. As we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, we do have a lot of active regions and a lot of snake-like filaments all over the disk, which we're watching quite carefully, but none of them have erupted yet. Now, the sun is giving us a lot of solar storms, but none of them have been directed towards Earth. So we're seeing a lot of interesting stuff on the sun's far side. But we do have back on the 7th, near region 3425, bam, right there it fires an M2 class flare and launches a solar storm that looks like it's mainly going to the east of Earth, although we could get a little bit of something along with the fast solar wind that we're going to be seeing from several of these finger-like coronal holes. We have one in the north, one in the south, and then one in the equatorial region. That's going to be giving us some pockets of fast solar wind over the next, possibly week or so, and that could give us a little bit of aurora, maybe down at high latitudes, probably not mid-latitudes, the wind isn't going to last long enough. However, we do have more regions on the east limb of the sun that look like they're also solar storm producers, and we definitely have a couple regions on the sun's far side that look like they could be big storm players once they rotate back into Earth view, which could be in about a week from now. Switching to our M-flare and dayside radio blackout threat meter, as we take a look at the X-ray flux over this past week, we've been hovering right about the seafloor, and by proxy that means that the solar flux continues to be high. Amateur radio operators, you should be enjoying some decent radio propagation on Earth's dayside. Now granted, we've had a few M-class flares here and there. They've been low-level flares at about an R1 level radio blackout, but they've been few and far between, and most of the flares have been sitting around C-class. So this means the noise on the band should be a bit quieter than what you've been having over the past few weeks when we had some bigger flares going on. But still, the radio blackout threat is still in the moderate range, so you could still get a single pop here and there, but most likely conditions will continue this way over the next week until we see some bigger flare players that are on the sun's far side. Switching to our solar storm conditions, we've been pretty quiet over this past week or so. In fact, the last time we actually reached storm levels was clear back on the 2nd and the 3rd, and this was due to a couple fast solar storms that hit us. However, the magnetic field really wasn't all that strong in those storms, so sadly we didn't last at storm levels for very long before things quieted down. Nonetheless, it was good enough to give us a bit of aurora clear down to mid-latitudes for a short while. Meanwhile, things since then have calmed down quite a bit. We have had a couple mini solar storms hit us, and that's what bumped us up to active conditions a couple times, but didn't last very long at all. And then we've just been hovering between unsettled and quiet conditions since then. However, we do have the pockets of fast solar wind that are going to hit us, and that could easily bump us back up to active conditions. So aurora photographers, especially if at high latitudes, you will get a chance again here over the next few days. But if you're at mid-latitudes, most likely the story is going to remain pretty much as it is now. Switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, we do have a lot of active regions in Earth view, including a few that are big flare players that we're watching, mainly regions 3425, 3423 and 3421. But a couple others we're paying attention to as well. But all of that activity is keeping that solar flux in the mid 150s right now, and that's the way things are going to continue easily over this next week. NOAA's giving us about a 40% chance of M-class flares at the R1 to R2 level radio blackout, and about a 5% chance of X-class flares at an R3 level radio blackout. So this means we have moderate noise on the bands right now, and that's going to be for the dayside radio bands. Nightside, it gets to be nice and quiet. You don't have to worry about these radio blackouts. But this condition is easily going to last until region 3423 rotates to the sun's far side, which will be in about a week. So the space weather this week is remaining a bit on the calm side. We do have some coronal holes that are rotating in through the Earth strike zone and sending us some fast solar wind. So aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, you definitely could get a show, especially around the 12th and the 13th. But if you're a aurora photographer at mid latitudes, well, the shows may be a bit more sporadic. So only if you're dedicated should you chase. Now, amateur radio operators, well, you guys are going to be enjoying the nice radio propagation on the day side because the solar flux remains high, but we're not having to deal with too many big solar flares and radio blackouts. And this condition is easily going to continue over this next week, so enjoy. And now GPS users, well, you know what? We're not getting any big solar storms on the night side with a ton of aurora, and we're not getting some big radio blackouts on the day side. So GPS reception, as long as you stay away from the dawn dust terminators and away from any aurora at high latitudes, your GPS reception should be pretty nice. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Dr. T. She's a great member of the Ham Nation crew and the Ham Radio Crash Course crew, and she's our science editor for Amateur Radio Newsline. She's got her, she wears many hats. And in fact, if you missed the Ham Radio Crash Course live stream that Josh did last Saturday, oh, you got to go back and look at that. It's an hour and 45 minutes that will completely change your whole outlook on space weather, and it will, she has this uncanny ability to make it so even I can understand it. She's an amazing teacher, Gordon West is another guy like that who can take a very technical subject and make it to where anybody can understand it. That's why he's the world's best amateur radio educator as far as licensing. She's the same way with space weather, so you got to check her out. Also, check her out on X, the former Twitter, at Tamitha Scove. She's got a YouTube channel. She's got spaceweatherwoman.com. But go back, look at the ham radio crash course from last Saturday, and invest an hour and 45 minutes into watching Dr. T and Josh. Great show, Josh. My hat's off to you if I had a hat, but I don't. So.
Well, thank you. We had a really good time with that show, and it was one of those, like, you aim for an hour, but it just kept getting better and better and better. And she didn't even go through a quarter.
Oh, she was
of
just
her
getting started.
slides. That was just the warm up. 60 minutes, by the way, when you get moving, like, and you're on a topic, you can blow through 60 minutes, and it feels like you're not even doing anything. It's crazy.
I feel like you may have had a eureka moment or two listening to what she had to say. I mean, I could tell that all of a sudden the light came on, and it's like, oh, I get that.
Right.
That is her talent.
What I'm thinking in the back of my head is, because I work on satellites and other things like that, when she's saying all these things, I'm like, oh, I got it. And now I'm building these bridges between ham radio and my actual job and all that stuff. And I'm like, aha.
Yes.
You know, a lot of aha moments. Yeah, so many of those.
Yes.
So, yeah, can't say enough about Dr. T, and we totally appreciate all the time she spends just on this show, but then everything she does for amateur radio, space weather, and all the others. So I think that's pretty much it, everybody. I want to say a big thank you again to Steve for taking the time to be our guest host. Got a couple of mentions here. D-Star After Show will be on Ref 14 Charlie, so the 14 Charlie channel, which is at 21 hours Central Time or 2 UTC, so make sure to check that out. We also have the 40-meter net, if that's still going, with Kevin, KC7 FPF, and actually 20-meter net with K7 UDI on 20 meters, or will be on 75 meters. So you can look for him on 14.268 megahertz. Around the room, anybody want to mention? 10 gigahertz and up contest right this weekend, Gordo? What are you doing?
We're going up on a mountain and shooting well down into Mexico, 300 to 400 miles, running 2 watts.
There you go.
Look out for our friends in San Clemente Island. I got word that Austin will be on the air on 10 gigahertz, so keep a listen out for them as well. Is it KN6UWK? I can't remember their exact call sign, but it's something close like that. So keep an ear out for that. John, what are you up to?
Well, like I said, this Friday is our 39th wedding anniversary, so we're going to be, hanging out over the weekend. I got to work Saturday, but that's all right. So I don't know what we're going to be doing, but we'll do something even if it's wrong, especially if it's wrong.
There you go. Steve, bring us out or take us away. Where do you want to mention before we head out here?
Not a lot. I've got, work this weekend as well. Section managers are coming up, the new section managers to headquarters, so I can kind of explain to them some of our programs we're doing. Josh is pointing to the ARRL.org/donate. Yes, I'm never above begging for that money. Know that that money is purely restricted and protected, and it's just going to teach teachers so that we can inspire teachers to inspire kids. So
wonderful. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode of Ham Nation. Until we talk to you again, which will be in about 2 weeks. 73.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.
73.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, everybody. See ya.
Woohoo!